Curse was a mechanic in Dark Souls 1 that was so rare yet so punishing it almost seemed like it was intended to make players afraid of it. In the following games it remained as the worst affliction you could get, although in Dark Souls 2 it was split into a weakened Curse and a still powerful Petrify. Petrification, for all intents and purposes, can be considered the true Curse in Dark Souls 2, as it shares the punishing nature and basilisk lineage of the original. But what exactly is this force, too powerful and too fearsome to ever be allowed in the player's hands? There is almost no lore around it, yet it seems so deliberately placed, especially in the first game. It's a clear message. You went somewhere you shouldn't have gone and now you're in trouble. Surely this must have some meaning behind it. The following manic rant will explore the curse mechanic and the lore behind it, largely from a Dark Souls 1 standpoint, where it exists in its pure, utterly dickish form, but will include examples from the rest of the series. Also, there's a chart at the end showing how convoluted this all is. The weakened curse of Dark Souls 2. Getting cursed in Dark Souls 2 notably does not kill you, and only lowers your health by the equivalent of a single death. This version of the curse is caused by enemies that seem to be tied to some kind of witchcraft. Nashandra uses it. It comes in creepy, giggling jars that seem to be leaking some kind of abyssal discharge, and it's inflicted by the Lion Clan warriors, who are often found near curse jars, and who are implied to be a clan of unnatural heathens who hate humans. The aesthetics of most curse-generating attacks seem to indicate dark magic. The exception to this is the Pursuer's glowing sword attack, which more closely resembles sorcery. Curses as a gatekeeper. In Dark Souls 1, you're practically set up to get cursed on your first playthrough. The Depths has that one trap that will drop you in a basilisk pit with no clue what's even going on. Whether it's a good game design idea or not, this is designed to be jarring. Wait, you'll say, among a few expletives. Dying and losing souls is supposed to be the worst thing that can happen to me. This sets up basilisks to be a fearful sight, something you always hope you won't see again. You eventually figure out the route through the depths that allows you to bypass them, and you associate basilisks with straying from the correct path. What a surprise then when you get swarmed by them immediately upon finding Ash Lake, one of the best hidden areas of the game. If the two illusionary walls didn't give you the hint that you're sticking your nose where you shouldn't, the basilisks will. This, after all, was the home of the ancient dragons, now nearly extinct. This is no place for men to venture. Could they be put there to convince you to turn back? Dark Souls 2 uses them much more liberally, but Dark Souls 2 is much less subtle in its attempts to prevent you from getting comfortable. In Dark Souls 3, the theme is generally back. Basilisks show up in Smoldering Lake, a hidden area that almost definitely used to be Ash Lake, and in Farron Keep, but not where you're guaranteed to run into them. They seem positioned in order to keep you from going too far off the beaten path and discovering Farron's hidden ties to Ulasil. Is this an intentional way of making sure that only the brave find some of the best hidden secrets? Finding the Path of the Dragon, surely a heretical cult, involves pushing past the threat of being cursed. In Dark Souls 1, it's the basilisks of Ash Lake. In Dark Souls 3, it's Osiris with his crystal breath. And then the Irithyll jailers, whose abilities are similar to curse, if less permanent. Some kind of force is putting curses in places where they don't want the undead to wander. When you consider how hated the undead are in Dark Souls 2, it makes sense why curse and petrify are more common. In Drangleic, the undead are essentially put in internment camps where they're constantly tormented by the likes of the Flexile Sentry and the Executioner's Chariot. But who is unleashing this evil on hidden and forgotten places, and why? Seath, crystals, and curses. For the average person, the next time you encounter the threat of a curse after the depths in Dark Souls 1 will be when you face off against Seath and his crystal golems. Unlike with basilisks, you're forced to take on Seath and his golems. There is a certain connection between crystals and the curse. Seath uses his crystal sorcery to curse you. The crystal golems can curse you with a similar attack, making crystals pop out of the ground. and getting cursed in Dark Souls 1 and 3 causes you to turn into a statue with purple crystals around it. Oddly enough, crystal sorcery does not cause a curse when the player character or Big Hat Logan uses it. In fact, nowhere in the series has a human ever successfully cursed anything. We know that Seath is a dragon who betrayed his own kind. Could basilisks be another one of the reptilian crossbreeds he created? They're found guarding the way to the gaping dragon in the depths, and the stone dragon in Ash Lake. Could the curse be an ancient form of sorcery, inherited from Seath and used to hunt down the remaining dragons? It wouldn't make sense for the channeler in the depths to defend the gaping dragon if this is the case, but it's possible that the chosen undead is a higher priority for Seath to eliminate. Perhaps he found out it also works to weaken his human test subjects. The curse, said to eat away at humanity, may stem from magic unknowable to humans. Nito, Eyes of Death, and the Miasma Theory. When you finally find the courage to go basilisk hunting, you'll discover that the big eyes on the top of their heads are actually Eyes of Death, totems of Gravelord Nito and his servants. Nito was known for spreading a deadly miasma of disease in order to fight against the dragons. Could this be the fog that the basilisks spew? The absence of any cursed creatures in Nito's domain makes this theory seem unlikely, but keep in mind that the Eyes of Death, when used by a Gravelord servant, only spread misery to other worlds. The Eyes of Death dropped by basilisks are a sure sign that there is at least some connection between them and Nito. Perhaps they are how Nito spread his miasma to Ash Lake and killed the dragons there. After all, even a puny drake is resistant to Nito's usual toxic attacks, but we've never seen how they hold up to a curse. If curses can harm dragons as well as humans, then it only makes sense that Seath, Nito, or both created basilisks as a weapon. New Londo, the Abyss, and the Deep. Upon reaching New Londo and picking up some transient curses to be able to defend yourself, you'll learn that the dead of New Londo are cursed, causing them to roam the city as ghosts. The inconsistency between this and the way we've seen curses work makes it seem like they're using curse in a looser sense here. But if you're currently cursed, you can fight the ghosts without using consumables to be able to damage them. This would suggest that the curse they are under is at least very similar to yours. Could the Abyss have cursed them when it was let loose? The shield and sword of Artorias were said to be cursed by the Abyss, and as such they can eliminate the need for consumables when fighting ghosts. However, what exactly cursed these ghosts? Even diving headfirst into the Abyss will only kill you at most. Dark Wraiths don't curse you, their gimmick is stealing humanity. In fact, when you consider that humanity increases curse resistance, it would make sense that the Dark Wraiths are stealing humanity in order to avoid being cursed by whatever is out there. In Dark Souls 2 and 3, there are some abyssal and dark enemies that can curse you. Could Nashandra, or one of the other fragments of Manus, be the cause of the curse in New Londo? I'm tempted to blame Ingward for it, but remember that there have been no signs of humans being able to curse anyone. In Dark Souls 3, one of the few enemies that can curse you is the giant spider-like abomination that Aldrich sends to ambush you a couple times. This is most likely due to the nature of the Deep as a forbidden place, much like any other forbidden place guarded by cursed beings. And the fact that by the time Dark Souls 3 takes place, the Deep has been a garbage disposal for all of the worst things in the world until eventually overflowing and perverting the world of mortals. The plot against humanity. By the petrified lion warrior in Dark Souls 2, we know that there are at least some non-human races who can fall victim to the original curse. However, what if it was originally designed as a way to keep humans in line? In Dark Souls 1, this makes sense. Seath is basically a fantasy Dr. Mengele who wants to cling to his immortality at the expense of humans through his inhumane experiments. It would make sense for him to develop a spell for the specific purpose of terrorizing any undead who threaten his immortality. Ash Lake is a place that somebody really didn't want you to find, hidden behind 2 walls and containing a dragon that's supposed to be extinct. Worse yet, containing a way for men to become dragons. This would be a scary idea to the gods, who fought hard to eliminate dragons and who want to maintain their advantage over men. The inability to restore your humanity while cursed would make it especially effective against the undead. Perhaps one of the lords tried to use the curse to punish the dark wraiths of New Londo as well. In Dark Souls 3, basilisks seem to guard areas where ancient and powerful magic, such as the Golden Scroll or Izalith pyromancies, is found. But it is unclear who was behind this, as the gods are all nearly dead by this point. Basilisks may have simply multiplied and began acting on their own will by this point. In the depths, basilisks seem to guard the Ring of the Evil Eye, which is hinted to contain an evil spirit. In Dark Souls 2, Straight Ovalafus, a powerful and feared wizard, is found petrified. There seems to be a pattern of curse and petrification being used to keep humans from gaining too much power. Oddly enough, cures for curses are sold both by Ingward, who flooded New Londo on the gods' behalf, and the Pardoner of Velka, a rogue deity who opposes the gods. In Dark Souls 3, the Purging Stones and the Statue of Velka have the same effect, leading one to believe they are tied together. Perhaps Ingward's role as a healer curing curses is his way of atoning for his sins. He may have been given his abilities by Velka herself, to use as a way of seeking forgiveness. The implications of the largely aloof Velka helping to cure curses are interesting, as Velka seems to be motivated by punishing sins and opposing the gods. Either cursing people is a grave enough sin to warrant her intervention, or the gods have been using it as a weapon and Velka wants to help nullify it. In conclusion, curses originated from Seath's magic, as a weapon against his fellow dragons, against man, or both. Either working alone or with Seath, Nito created basilisks as his followers and sent them to strategic locations. For one reason or another, Velka wants to cure curses and hollowing. The curse in Dark Souls 2 is an entirely different breed than in 1 and 3, with petrification being the pure form. Dark Souls 2's curse seems to originate from the abyss and from dark magic, as opposed to the Dark Souls 1 and 3 curse, which is more potent and was first spread by Seath and Nito. After the ancient dragons were gone, the original curse became a weapon to target humans and keep them from straying too far from the set path. If anyone in the comments has anything to add or any insight on this speculation I've given so far, please feel free to chime in. Maybe we can figure out together what the actual lore behind the curse is supposed to be. In the meantime, feel free to analyze this schizo chart I've made and see if you can make any sense of it. This has been a little bit different of a video than what I usually make, but I noticed there was a lack of lore videos in regards to the curse mechanic and why the hell they would put something like that in the first place. Anyway, if you enjoyed this type of video and want me to take my ADD meds and start making big brain things like this more often, let me know in the comments.